February 19th, 1954, 1:47 in the morning. The phone in Bumpy Johnson's apartment rang. He was awake, reading in his study, a glass of bourbon untouched on the side table. When the phone rings at 2 in the morning, it's never good news. Mr. Johnson. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, Midwestern accent, flat, professional. You're invited to a meeting. Red Rooster Club, basement, 2:30 a.m. Come with 2 men. No more, we'll have 9. This is non-negotiable. Who's calling? Someone who doesn't like repeating himself. 2:30. Be there. The line went dead. Bumpy set the phone down slowly. Calls like this usually meant one of 3 things: a negotiation, a trap, or an execution. Sometimes all 3. He picked up the phone again, dialed 2 numbers. Illinois Gordon answered on the first ring, Willie Jackson on the second. Both men lived within 5 blocks. Both knew that a late-night call from Bumpy meant trouble. Red Rooster, 20 minutes. Bumpy said to each. Basement, bring weapons but keep them hidden. This might be a conversation, might be something else. At 2:15, Bumpy pulled up outside the Red Rooster Club on 138th Street. The club was closed, lights off, front door locked. But a narrow alley ran along the side of the building, and at the end of that alley was a steel door that led to the basement. Illinois and Willie were already there, waiting in the shadows. Both men wore long coats, despite the cold not being severe. Coats that could hide shotguns, Thompson submachine guns, enough firepower to start a small war. Any idea who called? Illinois asked. He was 63, gray-haired, but his eyes were sharp, and his hands were steady. No, Bumpy said, but the accent was Chicago, and Chicago in Harlem at 2 in the morning means the outfit. Willie spat on the ground. Accardo? Maybe. Anthony Big Tony Accardo, the Chicago outfit's most feared enforcer. Not the boss, that was Sam Giancana now, but the man Giancana sent when words weren't enough. Accardo had killed his first man at 20. By 35, he'd killed at least 15. Probably more. He didn't do it from a distance. Didn't order hits and let others pull triggers. Accardo did his own work, and he did it in ways that sent messages. Bodies found in pieces. Victims who'd been kept alive for hours, days, while Accardo asked questions and used tools. They called him Big Tony, not because he was particularly tall, maybe 5'10", but because of his presence. When Accardo walked into a room, the room got smaller, oxygen got thinner. People found reasons to leave. Many details of this era were never officially recorded. If stories like this interest you, feel free to subscribe and stay with us. If Accardo was in that basement, this wasn't a negotiation, this was a threat. Bumpy walked to the steel door, knocked twice. It opened immediately. A man Bumpy didn't recognize stood there, suit and tie, gun visible in a shoulder holster. He stepped aside without speaking. Bumpy entered, Illinois and Willie followed. The stairs descended into darkness. No lights until they reached the bottom, where a single bulb hung from a wire, swaying slightly, casting moving shadows across concrete walls. The basement was 30 feet long, 20 wide. Storage crates lined one wall. Old furniture, broken chairs, a disconnected jukebox sat against another, and in the center of the room, a metal table, behind it, 9 men. 8 of them stood. Suits, coats, fedoras, all armed. Bumpy could see the bulges under their jackets, could read their body language. Professional killers. Chicago outfit soldiers who'd done this before, who knew how to position themselves to cover all angles, who had their hands near their weapons but not on them yet. The 9th man sat at the table, and on the table in front of him was a circular saw, industrial, electric, the kind contractors used to cut through wood, metal, bone. The blade was crusted with dark stains that hadn't been cleaned. Next to the saw was an extension cord, plugged into the wall, the saw's motor silent but ready. Anthony Accardo looked up as Bumpy approached. He was 48 years old, dark hair slicked back, face that could have been carved from granite. His eyes were the worst part, flat, empty, like looking into a shark's eyes. No emotion, no mercy, just calculation. Bumpy Johnson, Accardo said. His voice was surprisingly soft, almost gentle, which somehow made it more terrifying. Thanks for coming. Sit. There was one empty chair across the table from Accardo. Bumpy pulled it out, sat down. The saw was between them, close enough that Bumpy could see the details, the teeth of the blade. The motor housing, industrial yellow, the blood stains that someone had half-heartedly tried to wipe away. Illinois and Willie positioned themselves behind Bumpy, backs to the wall. The 8 Chicago soldiers shifted positions, creating a semicircle, 9 to 3, and every weapon in the room was on the Chicago side. You know who I am? Accardo asked. Yes. Good. Saves time. Accardo placed his hand on the saw, almost affectionately. This saw. You see it? You notice the stains? Bumpy didn't answer. Didn't need to. I brought it from Chicago. Accardo continued. Been using it for 3 weeks. 4 men. Different circumstances, but same result. You know what a circular saw does to a human body when you take your time, when you don't aim for the neck, don't go for the quick kill, but start with extremities, work your way in. He traced a finger along the saw blade, following the curve of the metal teeth. First man we did his hands. Took both hands off at the wrist, let him watch, let him scream. Then his feet, then elbows, then knees. You understand? We disassembled him, piece by piece, and the saw. It's not precise, like a scalpel. It's brutal. It tears as much as it cuts. So there's a lot of bleeding, a lot of pain, a lot of begging. Accardo looked up, made eye contact with Bumpy. That man took 6 hours to die, and at the end he told us everything we wanted to know. But we already knew it. We just wanted him to suffer. The basement was completely silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigeration unit somewhere in the building above them. The other 3 men, Accardo said. They died faster, but messier, because by then the saw blade was dull, had to really push it through bone. He smiled, not a happy smile, a demonstration of teeth. So Bumpy, you're sitting across from a man who's used this saw on 4 people in 3 weeks, and you're wondering, am I number 5? Bumpy's expression hadn't changed. He sat with his hands folded on the table, looking at Accardo the same way you'd look at a business associate discussing contract terms. If I'm number 5, Bumpy said quietly, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'd have just shot me when I walked in. Smart, Accardo acknowledged. You're right. If we wanted you dead, you'd be dead. This is a negotiation, but it's a negotiation where I want you to understand the consequences of saying no. He stood up, walked around the table, stood beside the saw, reached down and flipped a switch. The motor roared to life, the circular blade spinning, screaming, the sound echoing off the concrete walls. The stains on the blade blurred with the speed of rotation. Accardo let it run for 10 seconds, then switched it off. The blade slowed. The motor whined down to silence. Chicago wants into Harlem, Accardo said. Numbers, policy banks, protection, the same operations you run, but now we run them together, 50-50 split. You keep your territory, we get our share, everybody gets rich. And if I say no, Accardo looked at Bumpy for a long moment. Then he reached out and grabbed Bumpy's left hand. Not violently, just took it, held it flat against the table, palm down, fingers spread. Bumpy didn't resist, didn't pull away, just let Accardo hold his hand there while 9 Chicago soldiers watched. If you say no, Accardo said, still using that soft, almost gentle voice, then I turn this saw back on, and I take your hand off, right here, right now, in front of your 2 men. They can't stop me. 9 guns against 2. They pull their weapons. They die. You pull away. My men hold you down. And I take both hands, both feet. Then we leave you here, bleeding, screaming. And by the time someone finds you, you've either bled out or you're a quadriplegic. He increased the pressure slightly on Bumpy's hand, not painful, just firm. A demonstration of control. Or, Accardo continued, You say yes. We shake hands like businessmen. We celebrate with drinks. And tomorrow, Chicago and Harlem start a beautiful partnership. Bumpy looked down at his hand, trapped under Accardo's palm, looked at the saw, looked back up at Accardo. Then he smiled. A real smile, almost amused. "Tony," Bumpy said, "you made a mistake tonight." Accardo's expression didn't change. "What mistake?" "You brought a saw. You told me about 4 men you killed. You threatened my hand. You think fear is a tool, and it is. But fear only works if the person you're threatening is afraid." Bumpy's voice stayed level, conversational. "I'm not afraid. Everyone's afraid when they're about to lose a hand. Maybe. But here's what you didn't calculate. You said this is 9 against 3. You said your men can kill Illinois and Willie before they draw weapons. You're probably right. But what you forgot is this. I'm not alone in this basement. I'm not even alone in this building." Accardo's eyes narrowed slightly. "The Red Rooster Club," Bumpy said, "is mine. Owned by me. Operated by me. And you know who else is in this building right now? 47 people. Kitchen staff, security, janitors, people working late, people sleeping upstairs in rooms I rent. And every single one of them knows I came down here at 2:30 in the morning to meet with Chicago." Bumpy leaned forward slightly, even though his hand was still pinned under Accardo's. "So here's the math, Tony. You turn that saw on, you take my hand off. Maybe you kill all 3 of us. But 47 witnesses heard that saw. 47 people know what happened down here. And by tomorrow morning, 4,000 people in Harlem know Chicago came here and butchered Bumpy Johnson in his own basement. You know what happens then?" Accardo didn't answer. "War," Bumpy said. "Not a mob war. Not a professional conflict with rules and territories. A street war. 4,000 people who'll burn every Chicago operation from here to the Bronx. They'll kill your soldiers. They'll bomb your businesses. They'll make Harlem so hot that every family in New York loses money because nobody can work safely." Bumpy's smile widened slightly. "And Tony, you brought 9 men. I have 4,000. You brought a saw. I have a community. You can cut my hand off, but you can't cut off 4,000 hands. And the moment you start that saw, you start a war. Chicago can't win." The basement was absolutely silent. The 8 soldiers were watching Accardo, waiting for orders. Illinois and Willie were ready to move, but they held position. And Accardo was still holding Bumpy's hand against the table, still calculating, still trying to determine if Bumpy was bluffing. "You're betting your hand on 4,000 people caring if you die?" Accardo asked. "I'm betting my hand on you being smart enough to understand math. 9 armed men in a basement isn't power. It's stupidity if you're surrounded by 4,000 people who hate you." Accardo held Bumpy's hand for 5 more seconds. Then slowly, deliberately, he lifted his palm, released Bumpy's hand, stepped back from the table. "You got balls, Bumpy. I'll give you that. I've got more than balls. I've got leverage you didn't account for." Bumpy stood up, flexed his hand, looked at the circular saw. "You want to know why that saw worked on those 4 men in Chicago? Because they were alone. Isolated. Nobody heard them scream. Nobody cared enough to come looking. But I'm not alone. I'm never alone. And you just figured that out." Accardo looked at his 8 soldiers, then back at Bumpy. "So no deal? No deal. Not 50-50. Not any percentage. Chicago stays out of Harlem. Period. And Tony, if you or anyone else from the outfit comes back here with threats, with saws, with anything, next time I won't come down to the basement. Next time, 47 people come down here with me, and 9 of you don't leave." Bumpy walked toward the stairs, Illinois and Willie back toward them, weapons still hidden but hands ready. The 8 Chicago soldiers watched them go but didn't move. Accardo stood beside the saw, watching. Then, just as Bumpy reached the stairs, he called out, "Bumpy." Bumpy turned. "You're either the smartest man I've met, or you're going to regret this conversation. I haven't decided which yet." "When you decide," Bumpy said, "let me know. I'll be in Harlem, same place I've been for 25 years. Same place I'll be for the next 25. Then Bumpy Johnson walked up those stairs, out of the basement, out of the Red Rooster Club, and into the Harlem night. Anthony Accardo left New York the next morning, took his 8 soldiers and his circular saw, and went back to Chicago. He never returned to Harlem, never made another move on Bumpy's territory. And when people asked him why he'd backed down from one man, Accardo gave an answer that spread through the underworld. Bumpy Johnson taught me something that night. Power isn't about who has the biggest weapon. It's about who has the most people willing to use weapons on their behalf. I had 9 men and a saw. He had 4,000 people and a community. You can't saw through a community. The circular saw disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to it. Some said Accardo threw it in Lake Michigan. Others said he kept it as a reminder, but he never used it again. And Bumpy Johnson's hand, the one Accardo had held against that table, the one that had been seconds away from amputation, stayed intact. He used it to shake hands with allies, to count money, to protect Harlem for another 14 years. February 19th, 1954, a basement, a saw, 9 against 3, and the quiet voice that said, I have 4,000 people, you have 9. Do the math. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications for future stories and let us know where you're watching from.